Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is going to be a little bit different. Usually you see me sitting in front of these books and you're like, oh my god, there's books everywhere, talking about books. But today, I'm going to run you through my whole bookshelves. Now, I've only got two. It's not going to be like one of those massive YouTube channels where they've got like 4 walls full of books and it's like, here's a book from 1940s, a first edition written by Shakespeare himself. Shakespeare wasn't around in the 1940s, but you know what I mean. Either way, I'm going to take you on a little book tour because people were asking on one of my lives that they wanted to see a bookshelf tour of every book I've read. So what I'm going to try and do is I'll go through my books, I'll talk about what order I do them in, all this sort of stuff. I'll run through some of the individual books, any books that I have fond memories of, any books that I thought were awful, anything like this. If there's any stories behind books, I'll talk to you about those as well. But other than that, there's also some other gubbins and stuff on my bookshelves, which honestly, at points I've not checked and maybe a bit embarrassing. So let's get into this. Let's see what's on my bookshelf. But first off, I need to go make a cup of tea. So I'll see you shortly. Okay, I've got my cup of tea. It's got my initial on it in case I forget how to spell the start of my name or something, I don't know. Look, my name. So, let's start at the beginning. Now, I've got the ring light. I've not got you in a ring light, so if you feel sick at any point, it's because I'm actively not holding you in a tripod. But, let's start at the beginning. So, we start at the top here, and this is A. I organise all of my bookshelves by alphabetical order, based on author. So this is A. We go along the top here. Ben Aaronovitch, Rivers of London. It's a book series I wasn't that interested in. Not one that I'd recommend to anybody, but I hear it's got a lot of publicity. I hear a lot of people like it. So maybe if you're into that sort of thing, it's about kind of like alternative London where there's like ghosts and ghoulies and things involved, but it wasn't my sort of thing. So it wasn't the kind of a book that I think I was obsessed with, unfortunately. We then go on to Joe Abercrombie. Absolutely fantastic. He's brilliant. Absolutely love Joe Abercrombie. Without doubt, one of the best fantasy writers out there at the moment. He writes something called Grimdark, which is like dark, grim fantasy. And this is basically along the lines of you kind of have a lot of swearing, a lot of blood, that sort of stuff. We then have Frederick Backman. Along here, a bit further on, we've got Jane Austen, we've got Isaac Asimov, we've got a Brian Asher, who is an individual author, very small, like him as well. I'm not saying he's small, I'm just saying he's an individual indie author, so small time sort of thing. Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Spoke about this one in a couple of videos recently. Really enjoyed all of his work that I've read so far, which is just that one book. The Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is a book series that I've not yet started, so I think there is actually a trilogy before it, which I have not, as I said, started yet, but I do intend to start. I have watched the TV series of, though, actually. I think this is like to the start of a duology that's separate to it. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below what I'm missing out on here. The Pact by Sharon Bolton. That was fine. Bang average. Thriller. The Dan Brown series. I've got 3 of them so far. I'm not sure if I've got all of them. I'm not sure if I've got them all in the right way, in the right order. In fact, I've got one that's shorter than the others, and that winds me up, so I would hope to get rid of this soon and get the one that matches this height. Then have Pierce Brown. This is a football trophy from when I was a child. You can see, what year does it say? 2005, 2006, Luke Harkness, absolutely killing it. So I would have been like 11, 12 then. Pierce Brown, the fantasy series, his kind of science fiction Red Rising series based in like an alternative future where they have to do trials, and it's a very odd kind of world. I watched a video today actually of Pierce Brown. I thought it was gonna be like an old dude. Pierce sounds like an old dude's name. He's not an old dude at all. He's actually quite young and actually quite good looking. So that's there. I've started that. I've read the second book. The second book is there even. The third book is on my TBR shelf, which I think I'm gonna avoid today because that's a mess and I've not organised it whatsoever. You kind of jump into then Dark Age, which is just utterly, obscenely large. I'm not sure why that needed to be that long. We then have Iron Gold. I'm not sure if these continue on because I know these first 2 are part of a trilogy. But then people say you can carry on here, but then maybe it's not the same character. I have no idea. Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill, which I think is the second book in the series. I'm not sure where the first one is. I'll be honest with you. My brother might have it actually. We'll see. The Alienist by Caleb Carr. I read this a long time ago, like a historical fiction based on like a kind of creepy horror, not really horror, but detective who tries to solve things, and there's someone going around killing, I think, children, that sort of thing. We then have Graceling by Kristen Hanna, which is absolutely fine. It's not great. It's like a fantasy, but for like, I don't know, people that are getting into fantasy. And now we're on the shelf I can actually reach. So we've got Bittersweet, because I think the second one is probably down here somewhere. And this is possibly the third one. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. We then have Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which is fantastic, brilliant. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. We then have Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is one of the few non-fiction I recommend. It was actually quite useful. Basically, it gives you like tips on how to form good habits and get rid of bad habits without like being preachy. It's like, just try this, try this, try this, try this, and try this. And then you might actually find that you're actually forming quite a good habit. Then we've got Bernard Cornwell, a couple of his books. He does historical fiction. This is the Last Kingdom series, which I think is actually a TV series on Netflix as well. It's based around like 800 England time when there was kings and King Arthur and things. I might have got some of those dates wrong, things like that, but it's kind of, that's what I remember. Remember, this is a book list of like over, I don't know how many books, I've never counted. From 4 or 5 years now, I've read like 200 books over the past few years. I'm not going to remember everything. Michael Crichton, Jurassic Park and The Lost World. Would recommend them. Absolutely banging. Slightly different from the movies in terms of the characters are slightly different. Who they are, what they do, the actual plot is slightly different as well. But it feels like you could picture everybody, so that's good. We've got Laura Cumming, Thunderclap. I've just finished that. You can see videos of all of this sort of stuff on my TikTok. American Dirt by Anne Cumming. Really, Janine Cummins. Really enjoyed that one a long time ago. I've not actually read the physical copies of these. This is The Cleaner and Saint Death by Mark Dawson. And these are two books that I started a long time ago. And I'm not even sure if I've got reviews of them on my blog. That's how long ago I started reading them. They're kind of like Lee Child, Jack Reacher sort of things. Initially they were Amazon only, but he has now released them, obviously, as you can see, for the bigger audience and mass paperback, and they are out in like supermarkets and things. Will Dean's The Last Thing to Burn, one of the best short thrillers I've ever read, fantastic. Lie With Me, this was recommended to me by Lisa Jewell. I haven't actually pushed these back. Now I know people have a problem with sticking these to the back of the shelf, but I have a problem with, I would have absolutely no idea how to bring them all into line, so this is easier for me. We then have Room, by Anna Donoghue. I've read this and I've watched the film. This, I think, unfortunately, is the film front cover. Yes, ew, that's not what we want to see at all. The Girls Who Disappeared by Claire Douglas. Love Claire Douglas, solid thriller writer. Fyodor Dostoevsky's White Nights, brilliant. I'm not going to get that back in, am I? There we go, slid it right back in. This is A Change of Seasons by Khurram Elahi, a very odd book by an author that sent it to me. I genuinely could not tell you a single thing about that book yet, but I just remember it being very odd and creeped me out. Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson. This is the start of the, I don't know what they call them now, but this is a fantasy series that's absolutely epic. This is a small version. It really annoys me that it's tiny. Also, I feel like that should not be legal, how close that N is to the end of that page, but there we go. That's Stephen Erickson's The Garden of the Moon, which is the start of one of the most epic fantasy series of all time. The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn, fantastic thriller, absolutely legendary, love it. A couple of books here by Lucy Foley, love those. Nice and easy thrillers, that kind of group of people go to a place, they end up dying, that sort of thing, that's all there. Diana Gabaldon. Outlander, this is the first start of the Outlander series. So if you've seen that on TV, it's linked on Amazon Prime. There's a book series about it. It's long. I've only read the first book. Wasn't that bothered about reading the second book. Chasing Graves, this is by Ben Galley. He kindly sent me this as kind of like these are my books. Which one do you want to read? And he sent me this one as a starter. Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus, absolutely fantastic. Love this one. List of Suspicious Things, Jenny Godfrey. We've heard about all of these books before. We know how good they are. We don't need to talk about these. Malice by John Gwynne, another fantastic series. The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Now, I think there's a trilogy of this. The second one's already out. The third one is literally out in the next few days. So if you're into fantasy and you want to get into something, John Gwynne is a strong place to start. Janice Hallett. I do have The Appeal, but I let a friend borrow it, and I don't know if I'm going to get that back again. Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Talked about those already in a video recently where I talked about books that were worth the hype. Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. Absolutely loved it. Think she's fantastic. Have The Nightingale kindly sent to me by a follower over on Instagram, so I'm looking forward to reading that by her as well. Fatherland by Robert Harris. Just finished this, gave my opinion recently. Conclave, also by Robert Harris. I do have The Act of Oblivion somewhere as well, or I thought I did. Maybe I just read it on Kindle. I don't know. I thought I had the physical copy of that. No idea who we've given that to. There we go. Prince Harry, Spare. Controversial, good fun, enjoyable. If you want to read a book, that's one worth reading. Next up is Wayward by Amelia Hart. This is a book that I think received a lot of hype, but I just wasn't that into it. The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley-Heller. The fondest thing I can say of that book is I had a strong, good memory of it because I was on holiday at the time. I think it was fine. It was good enough. It wasn't mind-blowing. Great front cover, you know, it's one of those books that's fantastic to do on your social media. Look at that, stunning. It's got all the aesthetic vibes you can need. I'm not going to be able to get that back in now. I think I've got the special Pretty in Pink version or something from Asda, which is where they donate to breast cancer. By the way, this is not going to win Film of the Year. This is not going to win Filmography of the Year. There's going to be some awful angles here. I do apologise. You asked for it. This is the best I can do with it, with my setup. But The Happy Place by Emily Henry. Recently read this, recently loved it. Mick Herron, Slow Horses, that's good. That's also an Apple TV series if you're interested. It's about a group of people that kind of are ex-MI5. They got kicked out of MI5 and now they work on cases the MI5 don't want them to work on. Then one day there's one story where the MI5, you're like, it's quite a big thing and the MI5 don't want to work on it. And they're like, why? So that's the thing. I need a tea break. Next up, The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is a series I think is very much underrated. I think it's meant to be very good. I didn't enjoy it too much when I read it. I want to read it again because I want to read through the series because apparently it's amazing and I should be reading more. Eleanor Oliphant, Everything's Absolutely Fine. That's brilliant. Completely fine, even not absolutely. That's brilliant. Loved that. Colleen Hoover. I'm not sure why I only have one Colleen Hoover on this shelf. I should have two more. I should have It Starts With Us and It Ends With Us. I'm not sure where they are. Probably with a friend borrow them. A Splendid Thousand Suns by Colin Tassini. The only book that's nearly made me cry. Absolutely fantastic book. Love that. Want to read The Kite Runner. I did kind of read it in English when I was in like year 12 or something, or doing GCSEs, A-levels even. Wool by Hugh Howey. This is what the Silo TV series on Apple TV is about. It's about a group of people that are born in a silo, live in a silo, and then essentially one day they're like, there might be a life outside this silo. We believe it was all dead, but there might actually be something going on. So that's quite cool. There's a sequel to it, which I do have down here on my TBR, called Dust, called Shift even. These are in the wrong order. Shift apparently is a prequel to Wool, and then the third book is actually a sequel to Wool. So confusing, not very friendly, probably going to struggle to pick that one up again. Orphan X and Nowhere Man by Greg Hurwitz. These are fun little books about somebody who is essentially born and raised. He's an orphan, he's raised to then become like a killer, and then he's retired and he's done with it, but then the people of his past come back and haunt him and blah, blah, blah. Billborn Saga. I have a Star Wars ship, Lego Star Wars ship. I also have these fake plants. These don't actually have anything in them. They're not actually there. It's just, yeah. Illborn and Angel Sin by Daniel T. Jackson. These are brilliant. Love them. If you're into fantasy, definitely check them out. Great reads, very long, but also very, very worth it. And Daniel T. Jackson is also a solid guy, so that helps. Right, On My Knees now. This is a dinosaur that my partner's brother got me. It's actually a money box. I don't carry physical money, so there's nothing in it. You can hear that. I did see if there was like cash in it when I first got it, and there wasn't, so that's a shame. But there we go. So carrying on down here, we have Holly Jackson's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I do actually have the third book here. I'm waiting to get the second book, and I say waiting, I'm trying to find it somewhere just for cheap. I know I could buy it online, but it's one of those series where I'm not buzzing to read it, so I've just picked up the first and the last, because I've read the first, I need to read the last. The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin is also on here. Fine, not great, lot hype, didn't deserve it. Hell and Death is also on here. This was a book that was kindly sent to me by Profile Books, and it's a book essentially about, it's like an Agatha Christie sort of thing. They all end up going to a house, a big house somewhere, and one of them ends up dead, and they're like, oh my god, who could it be? But it's all a little bit satirical. It's not too serious. No one actually ends like panicking. They're all just like, right, let's all work it out logically. So that's fun. We then have my Lisa Jewell collection. There's only 4 books here at the moment. I think I do have a 5th. I have The Family upstairs as well somewhere, and I thought I had another one, but I can't seem to find that. Love Lisa Jewell, think she's great. They're the 4 there. Pink Edge, by the way, puts me off a little bit, but there we go. Just because it's different to the 2 yellows, and then there's Breaking the Dark, which isn't technically a Lisa Jewell original. It's a Marvel book, but that's another story. Then my Wheel of Time mini collection. I've not completed it yet because I've not read it yet. I'm not sure if I'll ever pick it up again because it was so bloody epic. Then we have Godkiller by Hannah Kaner. This is a book I recently finished. It's a little mini fantasy. I have a pile of bookmarks here, which I pick up and use whenever I need any more bookmarks. We then have Myrtle. 2 of them on here. I have a 3rd over there, which is volume 3, and I have been very kindly sent a DM by Profile Books, again, I think, who do these recently, literally yesterday, saying we have a new version coming out, which I think is like a prequel. I don't know, because they're meant to follow a story, kind of like an overarching story. This is a prequel. They're sending it to me. Very, very thank you. That did make sense. We then have This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. I bought this during COVID because I never actually heard of it, and then all of a sudden I needed to pick it up because I work in a hospital and it was quite fun to listen to. We then have Stephen King's Cell, The Running Man, and The Stand. I've read all 3 of those. years ago. Don't have reviews anymore on blog because it was so long ago. Now we are getting low. We then have Gregory Contaxis. We have the prequel here, which is so thin you can barely see it. There it is. Then we have the actual first book in the series, which is The Return of the Night, a good little fantasy. Again, if you're into fantasy, loved that. We then have the Poppy War trilogy by R.F. Kuang, which was fine. Again, I feel like all of R.F. Kuang's books I'm just not a big fan of the writing. They're not particularly engaging or fun. The characters are all very serious, etc. So the same was the case with Babel and Yellowface. You've got my reviews of those recently somewhere else. Then I randomly have the third book in the Millennium series, which is the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. I've read the first two, I think on Kindle, and then I've not read the third, and I don't know why that's there, because it should be over there unless I've not read the second, but I think I've read the second. No idea. Lost track. The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. That's fine. I've done a review of that one as well if you want to read about that. When Your Family Says No is a memoir by a woman who's essentially born into a devout Jewish family, and then she one day is like, I'm Jewish, but I've fallen in love with a man who's not Jewish, and he's bloody brilliant. And then their family kind of falls apart, and it's her memoir and her memories of all of that sort of stuff. Very powerful, really, really enjoyed it. Jade City, Jade War, God knows why I've not yet finished that series. Absolutely brilliant. I've put the third book on my Christmas wish list. Yes, I've just said the C word on a video in October, but there we go. Jade War, Jade City, brilliant books, absolutely fantastic. One of my favourite books of all time here, which is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Then we have High Rise by Vanessa Lee, which is actually quite relevant at the moment because I'm filming this as the hurricane is going, it's happening in Florida, so that's fairly relevant. Didn't enjoy the book though, it was kind of like, yeah, well, obviously that's what's happening. River East by River West by, I think her name's Aubrey Lescure, which is another great book. It's like a tandem between 1990s China and 2000s China, between a young woman and a man and how their lives intertwine, etc. The Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu. I probably butchered that, do apologise. That was great, good fun, quite interesting. There is a TV series which apparently was done by the same people who did Game of Thrones, but it's not that good apparently. The Catch by T.M. Logan. Love T.M. Logan. He's a bit like Elisa Jewell. Easy, fun, don't have to worry about what you're going on too much. Thrillers, fast-paced, etc. We've then got The Curfew by him as well. We've then got the first book in the Bourne series. I have read, I think, just this one, and I thought it was fine. I thought it, like, yeah, there's drama around it, but whatever. The Akator series here, you can see the third one is missing because I've still yet to read that one. Didn't find the first two great at all, so I'm not looking forward to the third one, and I've heard this one is the worst of them all. Then we have No One Saw a Thing by Andrea Mara, which was fine. Now we're on the floor. This is my bottom shelf. We have The Stranger in the House by John Mars. We then have I'm literally laying down. This is literally me right now. The Game of Thrones series. Now, most of these, some of these I bought, some of these my dad bought. I've read up to like 3, maybe 4. I don't know. Can't remember. Have also read The Fire and Blood, which is what the new series on HBO is going on at the moment. This is the Summoner series, which I briefly mentioned I'm going to stop laying down. Briefly mentioned in a video recently where somebody asked me, or it might have been a live, where somebody asked me what's the book on my TBR at the moment. It's probably been on the longest and why. The Summoner series was a book series that I picked up ages ago on Kindle. Read the first one, haven't read any of the others. Saw it was on really cheap on Bookstore, bought it, bang. Still sitting there. Atonium, A Thread of Existence by JGM. Very odd, very weird. Wouldn't recommend. The Housemaid series and all of my Freedom McFadden collection right there. Her books are all fairly similar. Thriller. Somebody the other day did say to me that maybe she's having them written by AI. I don't know. I don't want to get involved in all that sort of drama. The Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Absolutely brilliant. Loved it. Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Another fantastic book. Snowed In for Christmas. It was perfect. It wasn't amazing, but it was like a cute little Christmas book that I read at Christmas. I might try and find something similar again. So if you've got any recommendations for like Christmas books that are just easy reads that focus around Christmas, let me know in the comments below. Then we have The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes, which was another fantastic book. I think we all know Jojo Moyes is a great author. Ooh, okay. Tea break. We're over halfway through now because this is like a full bookshelf, as you can see, whereas this next one kind of is 1, 2, 3.5 kind of shelves full of books. So we'll go through those quickly now, otherwise this video could be hours long. Hope you're enjoying it, by the way, because it's a lot of books here. I'm going to count them. I'm going to put that in the title. I talk about over blah 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 books. I feel like a lot of people would watch that, especially if it's a big number. If I've only got like 10 books here and I'm visually impaired, probably not going to be a great title. It's my cat Nala. Let's carry on. At the top here, we have David Nichols. Absolutely love him. Think he's fantastic. One Day is one of my favourite books of all time. We then have Liz Nugent's Strange Sally Diamond, which is fine. Not the best book I've ever read. It was kind of an interesting concept. You've got your main character is essentially on the spectrum, and one day she throws out her dad's body into the incinerator after he's died because he joked with her, one day, to do it, and then the whole thing unravels that she's actually had this dark past, etc. Then we have Hamlet by Maggie O'Harrell. Absolutely fine, brilliant book, loved it. And then The Marriage Portrait, which wasn't so great, unfortunately. We've then got 2 of the Richard Osman books. I think I've read 3, and then I have a 4th down there. I don't know where I am at reading them. Yep. Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. Have you heard the drama that apparently the book is based on a true story and now her husband's in trouble and she might be in trouble as well? That's apparently a thing. We then have some James Patterson in Along Came a Spider. Absolutely fine, not amazing. Matthew Perry's autobiography, which is Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, which is basically a kind of memoir of his horrible time dealing with drugs and alcohol throughout his whole career. Very horrible, especially now that he's died. And there was some drama around his death. Apparently his assistants were feeding him extra drugs and stuff. We then have The Maid by Nita Prose. This was fine, nothing amazing. Talked about that on a video before. The Philip Pullman series, Amber Spyglass, Subtle Knife, and The Northern Lights. Might be different if you're American. I think they're called something else. The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. This was fantastic. Absolutely loved this. We then have The Whalebone Theatre, also by a Quinn, but this time it's Joanna Quinn. So we've got Kate Quinn and Joanna Quinn. That's brilliant as well. In fact, both books by both Quinns are fantastic. We then have a few books by Taylor Jenkins Reid. She is brilliant. Love pretty much everything I've ever read from her. Same sort of theory in all of her books. She kind of go through decades of a famous person's life or somebody who's experienced a famous person's life. And then in the end, there's often some sort of twist. We then have a lovely book by somebody called Maggie Richell Davies, which was actually sent to me, I think, by Maggie Richell Davies. It's a book about a woman who essentially gets pregnant and she has a job and then she gets thrown out and then she has to deal with it. And it's very emotional. Quite gripping, really enjoyed it. I'm not sure if she's done any other work, but I'd recommend that one if you're into that kind of thing. That's a very niche thing to be into. Anyway, Percy Jackson series as well is here. Not finished those. Think they're fine. Some people said they were better than Harry Potter. Not a chance. Powerless and Reckless by Lauren Roberts. Bang average. Year One by Nora Roberts. Very interesting. Sally Rooney's Normal People. Really enjoyed that. That featured in a video I did recently as well. Zoe Rossi really kindly sent me Someone's Watching Me, which is a thriller, which is kind of your generic thriller where there's somebody watching her. It's a bit creepy. Things happen. She's like, I don't know why they're happening, but they are. We then have a book with no spine, which is interesting. This is The Battle Song by Ian Ross. I think it was a proof at the time. Not finished. That was fine. It was like a historical fiction. Then I've got the Divergent series. I think I've got the one that I've not yet read. So tell me which one I've not yet read because it should be down here somewhere. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I do have The Wise Man's Fear on my TBR to read yet as well. Then I've got the Harry Potter series special edition series here, along with the screenplay for, I've got a plaque here as well, which reads, too many books, perhaps what you mean is not enough bookshelves. This was, I think that was like TikTok, Temu, something like that. And then I've got the beginnings of The Way of Kings. I do have the first 2 books in the Mistborn trilogy as well. These are all Brandon Sanderson. He carries on down here with Tress of the Emerald Sea, which I recently finished as well. We then have some CJ Sampson, absolutely love him. I think I've read more than this list suggests. I'm not sure where the 3rd book would be. In fact, I do know where the 1st book is. I've let a friend borrow it. The Scythe series, which has a little mini Lego character in front of it, of mini Goku or whatever his name is. The Scythe series. We then have Atlas in the Multiverse. This was a book that was kindly sent to me by Chandon Simon, which was absolutely lovely. Sea State by J.M. Simpson. This was a great book as well. She kindly sent me the sequel as well, so I'm looking forward to that. River God by Will Smith. Well into my ancient history, especially ancient Egypt. And this is a series that's literally set in ancient Egypt, so I was well into that. It was fine. Unfortunately, it wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. We then have Tribe of the Accord by Sean Michael Stone. This is a book that was kindly sent to me by Sean Michael Stone himself. Good book. About historical fiction. It's about like a cave woman that loses her dad or tribe and then goes off into a different tribe and gets scared and all sorts of stuff like this. Reinception by Serena Strauss. This is a really interesting kind of a future book where a future fiction where you can get modifications, etc. And someone rises up and nobody likes it. Door of Smoke and Bone and The Dream of Gods and Monsters. Honestly, can't remember anything about these. Liani Taylor, that was somebody recommended to me. I think I've got the second one down there to read on my TBR somewhere. I don't know. Then The Lord of the Rings. Don't need any introduction or conversation about those. The Drift by CJ Tudor. This was fantastic. Really enjoyed this. Take Your Shot by Robin Waite. This was a free book about productivity. Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. We know, I think everybody knows what that's about. She wakes up every day forgetting her previous memory and then starts to piece things together about her husband, who may not be who he seems. Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, absolutely brilliant. Only the Lonely by Tamara von Werthen, a nice little short story about an old man that solves a crime. The Spirit Engineer by A.J. West. Death on the Pier by Jamie West and Murder on the Matinee by Jamie West, which is a sequel to the first one. And then we're getting to the very end when we come to We Begin at the End by Chris Whitaker, one of my favourite books of all time, absolutely brilliant. Still Life by Sarah Winman, In Memoriam by Alice Wynne, two brilliant books, absolutely love them. Emberblade, this actually might be the best shelf on the whole pile. Every single book on this list absolutely slaps, other than this one. This is utterly painful to read. And Fourth Wing was not great. And Tomorrow, actually it was a very bang average shelf. That's not great. There's 3 books in the middle here that kind of ruin this. Book ended by 4 great books. But yeah, so we have The Emberblade by Chris Wooding, absolutely fantastic. Really want to pick up the sequel. I do have the sequel to that down here, which is called The Shadow Casket. Really excited to pick up that at some point. It's just such a big book. And A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, bang average, really frustrated me, made me very sad. Great writing, really appreciate that, but I can't be dealing with anything else involved in the book. Rebecca Yarros' Fourth Wing, overhyped, not as good as Harry Potter. Let's all calm down. The second book was terrible. Let's hope the third book is good to make up for how bad the second book was. Then very finally, we have Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I've talked about this in a video recently where I talked about the books that were overhyped on TikTok for me. We then very finally have Iron Widow by Jiran J. Tsao, which is a fantastic action book and concludes my list and my book tour. I just banged you on another bookshelf. This was probably the jankiest video I've done on my YouTube. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you thought, oh my god, I've thrown up like 5 minutes in because he's throwing himself around. I don't know. Let me know if you've seen any of these books, if you've read any of these books, what books you want more questions answered on. Let me know in the questions down below. Is this book good? Is that book good? Who knows? I will let you know if you ask in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I hope this wasn't too long. I will see you in the next video. If you've not yet subscribed, really would appreciate that. If you haven't yet liked, really would appreciate that. Either way, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and goodbye.